Brittany.
Hi, Rachel.
So today I wanted to talk about something that I think is really, really, really important. Maybe possibly one of the most important things we've talked about so far, and that is when a joke is no laughing matter. What are some bad jokes and places where you shouldn't joke, and what kind of trouble you could get in for the wrong kind of joke at the wrong time? And one thing that might come to mind immediately is at the airport. When you're going through airport security with your mom and dad, don't ever make a joke about things like bombs, explosives. Don't joke about guns. Don't joke about drugs. Just don't joke about anything when going through the TSA. I don't joke about anything at the airport.
I smile and nod.
Yeah, smile and nod. Just tip it. That's the best policy. I know it's. I'm a mom of two boys who are of that age where everything is a silly joke. So if you're about that age and you encounter a situation like that seems very serious, sometimes people want to inject a little joke to kind of lighten the mood, but that's not the time. So please be very mindful of situations where you're with authorities and they kind of they're kind of required to take everything seriously. So if you make a stupid joke at the wrong time at the airport, it can land you in a lot of trouble at worst. And at the very least, you might get a little extra hassle. So
it's
don't
funny.
joke about, yeah.
It's funny you say that because my coping mechanism in life is joking. And so if something terrible happens, I make a joke. If something good happens, I make a joke. If I get nervous, I make jokes. And I always make silly jokes in front of doctors and it's always not funny. I mean, I find it funny, but I'll get nervous and they're like, why are you making a health joke in the doctor's office? But my instinct whenever something is uncomfortable is to make a joke. And for some reason, every time I go through the TSA, I feel guilty, even though I have not done anything. They make you feel like you're guilty. And so I'm like, oh, just make a joke so they know you didn't do anything. And I'm like, wait, but I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So this is good advice.
It's tense, but just try to relax. And it's a good instinct to try to cope
lighten
with
the mood.
Tension. Yeah, it's a good instinct, but that's not the time or the place. Another situation I want to warn you about is online, in chat rooms, in games. If you have access to the internet and those kind of situations, I don't know if you have social media yet, but please be aware that things that you do online are not private. And there are people that could report you. There are ways that people in the government can see what you are saying. And you also want to not joke about violence against people. I saw a video, it was making the rounds on Twitter, of this adult man, and he was clearly he was mentally challenged, we'll say, but he was picked up by the cops for something that he said online. I think he was angry at the president, and he said something online that he shouldn't have said, threatening, and it was taken that way. And so the police, they came and got him, and it was really sad because he was crying and upset, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. By the time the cops show up, they all know that you made a mistake. You know you made a mistake, but it's too late. You're going to the sheriff's office and something bad is going to happen that could have severe implications that could follow you around for a while and cause a lot of money in legal defense. At best, and at worst, you could be going to jail. Seriously. And more these things are affecting kids, have a friend, we'll say just a friend, I won't say who, but their teenage son was just out messing around. They had like a BB gun or a toy gun or something. I don't know what, but it was a toy. It was not a real weapon, but they were in a convenience store and they were just messing around. And he said something about robbing the convenience store. He made a dumb joke and he thought that the cashier took it like a joke and they just went about their day. Yeah. But it turns out she did not take it like a joke. She actually called the cops on them and there were severe repercussions. It took this family's whole life savings to legally defend him so that he could kind of minimize the impact on his record. And it's sad because like, this is a good kid. Like he really didn't mean it in any negative way at all. Nobody got hurt. It's just, it was a very sensitive cashier. And I guess she was told to follow this procedure if she ever felt threatened. And I don't know why she felt threatened. Of course, I'm getting one side of the story, but I just want to impress upon, kids who are getting to a certain age, like, 12, 13, they want to joke around. They want to push boundaries. They might want to, get a rise out of their friends. But you got to be really careful in certain circumstances. So I just want to caution you, be careful what you say. Be careful how you joke. I know if you play games online, you might have moments of frustration. You might, if you're playing games with other kids and other players, you might get frustrated, or maybe you're just joking. Be very, very careful about jokes about hurting people, even though you're kidding. We all know you're kidding, but there's ears everywhere online, and you could get yourself in a whole lot of trouble that your parents don't want to have to deal with. So, and then also less serious than that, but like interpersonally, there's jokes that you can tell that can be at another person's expense where you might hurt their feelings. I don't know if you have any input, you being a comedian yourself, do you have anything about like jokes when it's not okay to joke with a friend? Like what kind of boundaries, and how can you tell?
That's the thing. I don't know that I can properly answer that because it's such a case by case basis. So one thing that I think good comedians, not all comedians, know how to do is read a room. You'll hear that expression, read the room. And that is to kind of get the vibe of the room, as they say. So a lot of times comedians, they'll do like crowd work with people where they'll like pick on someone in the audience. A good comedian can tell when somebody is very uncomfortable with you doing that and they'll move on to somebody else. And that is a good comedian. Other comedians like to make people uncomfortable. That's a whole other thing. Now with your friends, it's kind of like this crowd work concept, right? Where you're picking on each other. And I think that's one of those things where you have to know each of your friends specifically, right? So like I have friends that can take a joke different than other friends. I have some friends where I know where the boundary is, but if I cross that line, then it's not going to be funny anymore. And even with myself, I can take almost any joke, but it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day because I do very much believe in the power of laughing and I do like joking around. I can be a very serious person, but I like being goofy and making jokes. But if I'm having a bad day, me who cannot get offended over any joke, if somebody says one joke, I will just like break down and I have to remember like, this is not because of that joke. You've made far worse jokes. It's because you're having a bad day. But I don't like to ever make anyone feel like that. And so when it comes to knowing what to do and how to interact with other people, I think that is why you build close relationships so that you know when to do that. Now, should you start making jokes at your teacher's expense because you think they'll think it's funny? I'd highly advise against that. Yeah. And I know that I think you should always question authority and all that. I do think that respect, decorum is the word I always like to use. Like there's a good way to do that. But I think it's also as a survival skill, it's important to know which hill to die on. Is this joke going to change my life? Is this joke going to be funny enough where it's worth me possibly hurting someone's feelings or getting in trouble because I said something, I teased my teacher and they didn't like that. So I think you always have to weigh the cost and the benefits. And believe me, nobody understands how good it is to tell a good joke more than me, but.
Oh yeah. And I'm glad you brought up teachers. That's another scenario that I've run into as a parent is sometimes kids tend to make up silly names for teachers and poke at them behind their back. And sometimes those jokes make it back to somebody that you wish had not heard that joke, and you can get in trouble. And also, teachers have feelings too. They do. They're human beings, and just be sensitive, be respectful. And also, here's another category. I would say like racism, like racist jokes. I don't think they're ever funny. Just don't do that. Don't tell racist jokes. Humor is a wonderful thing. I mean, it's great. It's great to laugh. It's great to cut loose and have a good time. But just be really, really mindful of how your humor can be heard and by whom and who you might hurt and who you might offend. And, again, at the TSA, just don't say anything. Just smile and nod.
I do want to point out one thing, too, and that's I think somebody maybe who watched another episode or listened to another episode that we've done maybe on free speech might be wondering, well, I have the right to say whatever I want. So why are you telling me to watch it? And so I want to point out one thing. I know we're running out of time, but that is that free speech, as far as the Supreme Court goes, does have limits, and one of those is direct threats or inciting violence. So a fun thing to look up is Google, can I shout fire in a theater? And this is very interesting because there's a whole Supreme Court case on this. Can you shout fire in a theater? That's not a joke, but it's still, or what if you were joking? But there's specific rules on things that the Supreme Court has said, that doesn't count as free speech because you're actually jeopardizing someone's safety or you're making a direct threat. You could cause chaos. You could incite a riot.
Everybody tries to rush out the door, and then somebody could get trampled and tripped or something.
So you can say whatever you want, but there are consequences, and some of the time it is not protected by Supreme Court precedent of the First Amendment. So just to keep in mind, we're not saying you don't have free speech. You do, but you don't. None of us, unfortunately, are free from consequence.
That's right. With great rights comes great responsibility.
Yes.
So be mindful of what you say when you're trying to make a joke.
I think that's great. Yeah, great topic. And we will go on.
Leave it there.
Yeah.
Be sure to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. And until next time, talk to you later.
Talk to you later.